Hey everybody, I thought I'd put together a video kind of addressing some of the most popular questions with new beginners in 3D printing. People have questions about getting into 3D printing. So basically a 3D printing 101, if you will, type of video. Um, I see a lot of different questions. I'm in a lot of groups and I try to answer as much as I can. There's a lot of people that are just trying to start out, or they want to start out, and they join a group and they ask very common questions. They get asked a lot, and then somebody will get on there and roast them for asking what they consider a common sense question. Let's address that right now. If you're going to get into 3D printing and you go into a group, the questions you have that are probably the first beginner questions, search them in the search sections before you start commenting if you don't want to be roasted. I know a lot of people hate the fact that there's a lot of negative out there. That's just life. There's a lot of people out there that are just negative and rude. A lot of questions get asked a lot. I mean, a lot of the same questions over and over again. I'm in one group where you'll see the question asked 5 different times by 5 different people in the same day. And a lot of them's just, I've said this before, common sense is just previously learned knowledge. So if you don't know, then it's not common sense for you. If you do know, it's probably because you learned it at some point in time in your life. You probably didn't know it at the beginning, even if you think you did. People don't know fire is hot until they touch fire and then find out fire is hot. It's just a yellowy, red, glowy thing, and until you touch it or get close to it, you don't know what's hot. So that's the reality. Common sense isn't common unless you've already learned it. Anyway, going back to the first question, something you want to ask yourself if you want to get into 3D printing, something you want to do, and this is probably my first thing I would recommend for people. What do you want to build? What is your end goal with having a 3D printer? Do you just want to make toys? Do you want to make cosplay? Do you want to make helmets, armor? Do you want to just make prototypes of parts? So those are the questions you should ask right off the bat. The first thing I would suggest, no matter what your question is, download a slicer like Persia slicer, Orca slicer, Cura if you want, and play around with the slicing program. It's going to take you a while to learn how to slice a file. Watch videos on how to slice files. Watch as much as you can YouTube video wise, and try to learn as much as you can before you get into 3D printing, because you may not like how much work goes into it. I know a lot of people think you just put a file into a printer and out comes this cool item. You have to slice the file, you have to generate supports, you have to basically do a lot of things, and you have to learn how all that stuff works so that the print comes out beautifully, versus like me, my first print took 5 days and it looked like crap. So I mean, when you start off, you just never know. And like right now I'm printing a full-size helmet on the GDX Max 3, and it's going to take me less than 24 hours. That's not something you learn overnight. That's something you learn with trial and error. And anyway, getting back to the original question, download those slicer file programs. Find a couple files that intrigue you, whether they're free files you just want to play around with. Go to Printables and download some free files, and then slice those files. We'll go back. Pick profiles for printers you're looking at. If you want to buy a printer for $400, download a couple Elegoo's or a couple Anycubic printer profiles, or Cura if you want to buy a Cura. I mean, a lot of guys go that route, and download those printer file profiles and test slice prints. And the reason why I say that is if you're going to do like helmets, let's say you're going to do helmets. I see a lot of horrible advice where people will suggest a printer that can't print most helmets, even though guys want to print a helmet. I saw it just the other day, somebody recommended a printer that couldn't even print this helmet, if you wanted to. You'd have to print it like this big. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of people, even for me, when I ask a question with previous knowledge on 3D printing, and I will get people that will respond and try to help me by asking me more questions and offering me horrible advice because they have no idea what they're talking about. And just so you know, if you do that, I block you. I just straight up block you. I can't stand people that do that. If you do not know what you're talking about, do not comment. Do not help people. If you have no freaking idea what you're talking about. That pisses me off more than anything. I'm sorry, but it does. I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't claim to know everything, but I sure as hell ain't gonna comment on somebody's post if I don't know the answer. That's just simple logic in my head. And it pisses me off when people comment and give people bad advice because you don't know any better. If you don't know any better, shut up and let people that do know better. Sorry, just rant out of the way. So going back to it, download a profile, find a helmet. If you want to do helmets, download a profile, download that STL file, put it in the slicer program, see if it'll even fit on your printer. I mean, that's the first thing. Learn how to scale it. You're gonna have to want to scale armor to fit you. If you want to use AMS, you want to buy a Bamboo Lab printer, download the Bamboo Lab slicer, profile or slicer stuff, and figure out how to paint an STL file. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I saw a guy the other day complain about having to paint his STL file because he wanted it, he wanted an image rendering to be pre-colored. And I was really polite, I was really nice, but I really wanted to roast him like everybody else in the group. And I just bit my tongue and said, look, you don't know any better, that's fine. Don't comment with dumb comments and expect people not to be an asshole. People are just assholes. So with things like that, learn how to paint, learn how to use AMS, learn how to use Bamboo Lab printers, take your cartoony toy or whatever you want to print and print it on that tiny little build plate and have fun with it and learn how to do it. If you want to build something big, you're not going to be able to do it unless you slice it up into a bunch of little pieces. And then therefore you have to, if you buy something like a Bamboo Lab printer, you're going to have to download Mesh Mixer. I have Mesh Mixer. It was one of the first programs I downloaded. And Mesh Mixer will let you slice files and modify things and make it your own. You can't actually, well, I've never learned enough to actually physically do something like make a file. That's more of a 3D rendering type program. But Mesh Mixer will let you slice it up. So let's say you buy a Bamboo Lab printer, the helmet you download doesn't come pre-sliced for smaller type printers. Most makers are doing that now, but let's say yours doesn't. So you download Mesh Mixer and you cut it up into smaller pieces using their planer cut tool, and now you can print and glue them together and go that route. It's doable, it just sucks. And from my experience, I did an armor kit on my Sunlu printers, the chest armor. I had to print in 2 pieces and glue them together, and no matter what I did, it would snap in the seam. And like I said, I've tried a lot of things to get it to go. I'm pretty sure fiberglass probably would have been a better way to reinforce it to make it not break. But, for that, I went with an Elegoo Neptune 4 Max. That will print my chest armors in one big piece. I have a huge chest, so for me, I need a big printer, and the Elegoo Neptune 4 Max, the Anycubic Cobra 2 Max, both of those will print full-size chest armor on a guy like me. So if it'll fit me, it'll probably fit you. So go that route if that's what you want to do. If you want to do Iron Man costumes or stormtroopers or whatever you want to do, look at the slicing programs, throw the files in there, see if it's going to fit on your build plate. Look at how much is going to be involved into making it fit if it doesn't fit, and make a decision that way. If you're buying a 3D printer on your budget, that's a tough one because, like this Sunlu S8 Pro is a great printer. It's a good printer. Sorry, I shouldn't say great. It's a decent printer. It has a lot of issues. I learned a lot the hard way by having to modify it to make it work and print good. It's so freaking slow now. It's like watching paint dry compared to the rest of my printers. I'm not even kidding. It is so freaking slow. But that being said, I can print most helmets on my Sunlu S8 Pro, and sure, it'll take me 3 days, 5 days to print a full helmet, and it'll look decent. I would say 6 out of 10 of the helmets I print on the Sunlu come out good. Oftentimes I'll get layer shifts and I'll have all sorts of issues I'll have to deal with the Sunlu printer, but that's just because it's a cheap knockoff printer, and you can get that printer for $150. I mean, it's $150. If you want to get into 3D printing and you don't mind tinkering and fixing things and modifying things, the Sunlu S8 Pro is probably your best bet. There's a lot of Creality printers out there. Sunlu has horrible customer service. Creality, I've heard, has horrible customer service. They don't help you. When I had an issue with my Sunlu printers, they basically straight up ignored me. They didn't even give a crap about me. So I just kind of, I've moved on to other printers. Spend $400, get an Elegoo Neptune 4 or an Elegoo Neptune 3. You get an Elegoo Neptune 3 right now because of the 4 series coming out. You can get a 3 for a really good price. And if it was me and I was going to get into Armor or something big, I would get a Plus or the Max. They're just good printers. They're big build volume printers, and they can do good quality prints. I mean, they're not the greatest. They're like a better than a Sunlu knockoff, and Elegoo at least has good customer service. There goes my wife. So if you want to get into a good quality plug and play type printer, I see that question asked a lot. People want a $200 plug and play. I don't think that's available. I know there are people out there that will say, oh yeah, the Creality 3, whatever. I've seen so many horrible reviews. I would never even go that route. If you want to plug and play, spend $800 or $1,000 and buy like a Chitty X Max, something you can put on the counter and hit a button, and then all of a sudden it's tuned. That's the way to go. You can go to Bamboo Lab Printer for the same. You're not dealing with as much issues. Shut up. Fuck. I hate this. I fucking hate it when she does that. Shut up! Anyway, so...
Guess what?
What?
Loki has an Instagram page now.
So...
He's so cute! What are you doing?
Making a video.
Oh, so fussy.
It's fine. I'm right in the middle of a video. That's cool. Payback. Our walls are thin, so her wall's probably rattling like crazy. Anyway. She's like, tap, 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 tap. Back to our regularly scheduled program. If you want a plug and play printer, get something that's going to be $800 to $1,000. I've said this before, 3D printing is not for everyone. Somebody asked, complained because 3D printing wasn't like having a car, and I thought that was a great analogy. 3D printers are exactly like having a car. If you don't want to have to change your brakes and change your oil and replace your tires and work on your engine, it's exactly like owning a car. Most people want to buy a car and it just work all the time, but that's not the reality of owning a vehicle. You have to change the tires and you put new brakes on it and change the oil and put gas in it. That's 3D printers. They have a lot of little things that have to be fixed and worked on and maintained and tuned, and there's no perfect printer. People want to, one guy a while back said, oh, it should work like my leaf blower. Like, what? Your leaf blower has, gears and direct drive, and I mean, some of the stuff people think, it blows me away. But that's not the reality of 3D printing. 3D printing is basically a CNC machine that puts product on a plate instead of taking it off. So it's a lot more complicated than just plugging it in and heating up your toast in the toaster. So keep that in mind. If you're going to buy it for a child, I see that oftentimes people buy them for kids. Kids have a very low attention span. They can't focus, or they don't want to, and if it goes wrong, they just kind of give up. If your kid is like that, don't get them a 3D printer. I'm just sorry, but or get them a Chitty X Max, and then that way you don't have to worry about it. They just keep, they just work whenever you want them to work. But that being said, if you do get your kids into it, make sure they're not somebody that just gives up easily or gets frustrated. I don't know how many times I've had an issue with a printer and I've wanted to smash it into pieces. And if I was a child with a temper tantrum, I probably would. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to buy them for a kid, for a Christmas gift or whatever, just keep in mind that they're not always plug and play, and oftentimes you have to fix things. So, don't buy a 3D printer. Support other people. I have an Etsy store. I make things for people. If you don't want to have to deal with all the crap, I spent an entire day, an entire 8-hour day of all day, taking supports off armor for a customer. People think I just pull it off the printer and put it in the box and ship it out, and I make all this magical money. No, I spent my entire day pulling off supports. And when I say supports, I have supports. These things come off, and I spend all day, literally all day, pulling them off. You will have stuff involved. You will have to do things. It's like if you've ever owned a Cricut Joy or Cricut, you have to weed all the little vinyl off, and that can be time consuming, and some people just hate that crap. So just keep that in mind, that there are pieces of owning a 3D printer that aren't fun or easy. Or, is it fun to have pull off a toy and go and play with it? I printed these for some of the nephews and nieces for Christmas, and I kept one because they're just so cool. It's just fun. It's like a fidgety toy. But that being said, I still had to print this. I still had to get all my calibrations right. And what happens if I layer shift? Then I got to print it again. What happens if the support doesn't hold, and then all of a sudden there's no hand? That's life. You have to dial in your settings. And keep in mind when you're looking at settings, I get asked for my settings often. Your settings may not be the same as my settings, even if we have the same printer. That being mainly because not every printer is the same. I have 2 of the exact same Elegoo's, 2 of the exact same Chitties, and I don't always have the exact same settings for both of them. So oftentimes they'll be close, but I still have to kind of modify them, to have a better print quality based on what that printer produces. So just keep that in mind. Not all settings are the same. I can get you into the right direction, and I'm going to make a video on that as well. I think I've made a few videos on settings, but I have modified my settings 100 times since my very first video in settings, and even today I'm still making changes and learning. And Clipper was new for me. I've always used Merlin, which is a slicing. It's basically how the printer reads the software. So if you're new to this, the printer is going to read G-code the lines and basically go, this is what this says to do, this is what this says to do, this is what this says to do. And when you look at it, it's going to look like a bunch of mumbo jumbo gobbledygook. And some printers print with Merlin, and a lot of the newer ones are printing with Clipper. Clipper is just a little bit better in some cases, but it can also be a little bit more frustrating. But if you want to add like a time-lapse video and all that stuff, that's where Clipper comes involved. And it's fun. It's fun to have a little time-lapse video and kind of see where what's being printed and why. I've actually got one on this one right now. It's kind of fun to watch. But as far as 3D printing goes, I'm gonna say it again. Download a slicer software. Download some STL files that you want to print, and just kind of play around with it and get started that way before you pick a printer. The other thing too is when you slice the file, pay attention to how much filament's going to be used and how much time it's going to take. Because it's really interesting. I've learned this really interesting fact. The Chitty X Max 3 and the Elegoo Neptune 4 Max and the Anycubic Cobra 2 Max, wow, there's a lot of Maxes. Even with almost identical settings, speed settings, torque, acceleration, all that, almost identical settings, this thing actually produces prints at an alarmingly fast rate. I printed the same item, I put the same item in the slicer program, and I sliced it on the Anycubic, and I sliced it on the Anycubic and the Elegoo Neptune 4 Max, and it came out with about a 10.5 hour print time. And I was fine with that. I was going to just throw them in the printer and let it go for 10.5 hours. But just for fun, I wanted to see if it would fit on the Chitty, and it did. It actually fit on the Chitty X Max 3, which blew me away actually, because that was a big piece that I didn't think would fit. And long story short, it took 6 hours to print on this printer. It saved me 4 hours to printing on this printer than it did on printing on that one. Now, for most people, if this is a hobby and time is not money, then 10 hours is 10 hours, and who cares? At least in 10 hours you'll have, go to work and come back and you have a new print. For me, 6 hours means I can go to another print on the printer and get another customer's order out. So, there is some benefit to spending a little more money. It was really tough for me because for the price of this printer, I could buy 2 LED Neptune 4 Maxes, which I did. And until I got to a point where I was like, okay, I have the extra funds. Actually, I put it on PayPal credit. Don't tell the wife. And so now I have to pay back PayPal credit. But, yay, more credit and debt. If you want to get into selling 3D prints, it's getting harder and harder because there's a lot of people out there and there's not a lot of money to be made. Just going to be honest with you, there's a lot of people are printing these and going to events, and that's fun and that's fine. And they are popular. So if you do go to an event, and you do have a little box of them, you'll probably sell most of them. It's fun. It can be fun. I don't like going to stuff like that. I've done trade shows and stuff like that, and I don't personally like doing it. But selling online, selling on Etsy is a tough market. There's a lot of people selling the exact same thing, and everybody's trying to underbid the next person so that they get the sale, and it ends up being you barely make any money. I have several armor orders, and I underpriced myself, so I'm actually paying like $60 to $100 on shipping, and I've offered free shipping on top of having a low price for these armor kits. And once you figure out it's going to take me 10 to 20 rolls of filament, which is a couple $100, it's like almost $300 with if it's 20 rolls of filament to print an armor kit, and then you're only charging $450, and then you got to pay got to pay shipping, and then you don't think about how much energy you're going to spend running these things, or your time involved. The entire day pulling supports off prints. It's not a lucrative job. It really isn't. I'm doing it because it's helping to pay some of the bills we have, because we weren't smart. We went into debt. Don't go into debt. But that's kind of what I'm doing, and it's sort of working. It's helping. It's better than not having a job at all. So, there's that. And it's better than being on unemployment, or, in my opinion, no offense to anybody that is. But I'd rather prefer not to be on unemployment or medical. I have issues, don't we all? I have issues. I have medical issues, and I don't work. So this is my work. This is what I do for a living, and this is how I've been able to make do and not have to go for government help. You do what you got to do. This is just, for me, this made me feel better about contributing and that sort of thing. My wife's been super supportive. Marry a spouse that's super supportive about no matter what you do. That's just a whole nother issue. But, find supportive people, put supportive people in your life. Surround yourself with people that are willing to help you learn, especially with 3D printing. I've joined several communities and had some great help, and learned a lot, and had a lot of people help me. I just went through this really weird, only way I can call it is a lynch mob, an online lynch mob. Guys just kind of decided one day they wanted to be a dick and roast me and go off on me, and it was pretty fucked up. And I've had a few people reach out to me and tell me how fucked up it was. I've had a few of the lynch mob contact me privately and bully me in private messaging. So reality is, I just leave. I try to surround myself with good quality people that will help and inspire and promote and encourage. And if you find somebody that's not like that, just leave. You don't need that negativity in your life. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of groups out there that aren't willing to help. They want to discourage everybody from doing something. God forbid, we have competition. So just keep that in mind. I mean, that's life. Competition's life, and you're always going to have people out there that are assholes. So don't surround yourself with people if they're talking shit to you about somebody around you. They're talking shit about you to somebody else. So just keep that in mind. Negative people are always going to be negative. They're always going to be horrible people. Surround yourself with good, positive people. So that's another life lesson for you. I'm going to call it quits on this conversation because I keep blabbing about things. I'm hoping some of this video was helpful. If you guys have questions, if you want to talk about stuff, let me know. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. You can message me privately if you want. If you're going to be an asshole and, troll me, I'll probably just block you because I don't need negative stuff in my life. But for the most part, if you want to learn, you want to help, you want to grow, be a better person, I'm all for it. I'm all ears. I'll help you, and you can help me. And that should be what we do for other people. I mean, we should just do that for our community in general. But anyway, hope you guys all have it's Thursday. Hope you guys all have a good rest of your Thursday, and happy Friday for the guys that are on tomorrow's schedule. Thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate y'all. I really do.